Start winning at the races with Daily Racing Form's new mobile pass performances, featuring exclusive buyer speed figures and expert analysis and selections. Go to drf.com/best and get the power of DRF in the palm of your hand.
Hey everyone, Nicole, Russo in Kentucky and Dan Illman in New York, welcoming you to this week's edition of the Oaks Countdown. Let's take a quick look at the leaderboard toward a spot in the 14-horse starting gate for the Philly Classic, set for the first Friday in September. And we should be seeing some new names on this list next week. It is Belmont Stakes week, and the undercard of the adjusted first leg of the Triple Crown will be highlighted by the Grade 1 Acorn for 3-year-old fillies. It will offer 50 points to the winner. The field will be drawn a little bit later on, and we're expecting to see a couple of familiar names in there, including Busher winner Water White and Lucrezia, a multiple stakes winner at Tampa. But the one everyone's really looking forward to seeing is Gamine, expected to ship in from California for Bob Baffert. The filly has won both her starts. She followed an impressive maiden win with a closer win in an allowance at Oaklawn. We'll watch her here, in which she added some distance and edged out a more experienced filly in Speech. That one came back to be second in the Santa Anita Oaks to divisional leader Swiss Skydiver. And Dan, Gamine stepping up for a class test, but people really think the world of this filly.
They've thought the world of her since day one, before she even made her career debut, and she has disappointed no one. She is fast, she is game, and her path to the Acorn and perhaps to the Kentucky Oaks made a little bit easier when the connections of Venetian Harbor decided earlier this week that they would bypass the Acorn for a race like the Ashland at Keeneland. You would think that this distance, this configuration at Belmont, right up Gamine's alley, she's simply the one to beat.
Oh, certainly. I think that one-turn mile suits her perfectly as she continues to build a foundation. She's one of the fillies that we've talked about who really might be benefited by the fact that the Oaks was pushed back from its original May date. She got a little bit more time to develop, test the waters in allowance company rather than jumping straight into stakes company. And now she seems primed and ready to step up.
And she has wonderful tactical speed as well. I think we'll see her up close to the pace and just a tremendous amount of upside potential and natural talent. She's going to be very tough for Bob Baffert, but she is far from the only talented filly in this race. The Acorn is going to be a very intriguing race. We're going to see horses go one of two ways. They're going to go either to the Kentucky Oaks in distance, but if we see a couple of horses falter at the distance, we might see these talented runners turn back for races like perhaps the Test and the Prioress at Saratoga. So really an interesting race for the rest of the year. Could have implications for the Breeders' Cup Distaff as well as the Breeders' Cup Filly and Mare Sprint.
Oh, certainly. And one filly, one of the talented fillies who you mentioned, who I think might appreciate the one-turn mile here, is Perfect Alibi, making her first start since finishing fourth in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Fillies. She had a very productive 2-year-old campaign last year, highlighted by this win in the Grade 1 Spinaway at 7 furlongs at Saratoga. Also won the Adirondack there, was second in the Astoria here at Belmont. All of those races sprinting. She did finish second to British Idiom in the Grade 1 Alcibiades at Keeneland going longer, but I do think perhaps cutting her back, especially off the layoff, which freshened her up after a busy season, is a fine move here for her.
I do agree. I think that the shorter distance works for her. This is a very tough spot to make your 3-year-old reappearance off of a very long layoff in a major Grade 1 stakes against talented horses. I like the precocity and the professionalism that she showed as a 2-year-old. Now we're going to find out if the rest of this crop has slowly caught up to her, because I think it's fair to say that she wasn't getting noticeably faster towards the end of her juvenile campaign, and she is going to have to run a faster race on the buyers if she's going to be a Grade 1 caliber filly this year.
And going from precocity and speed to a later developing filly who will certainly appreciate more distance down the line, I feel like we'd be remiss if we didn't quickly look at this filly, Pleasant Orb, going out for Barclay Tagg, who of course will have Tiz the Law as the favorite in the Belmont later in the day. This filly scored her maiden win at a mile in this effort at Gulfstream, then came back and finished a nice third in the Hollywood Wildcat behind Tonalist Shape, a filly that we've talked a lot about this spring. Pleasant Orb is by Kentucky Derby winner Orb, and from a deep Phipps female family. Her Damn Pleasant Home, a 9 1/4 length winner of the Breeders' Cup Distaff in 2005 at Belmont Park. Dan, this one might not be up to the quality of some of these yet, but I wouldn't be surprised if she just continues to develop here in New York during the summer.
She is all upside potential right now. We saw her race. She was a little bit green at Gulfstream. She was no match for Tonalist Shape, who just simply has too much of an experience advantage for her right now. But I think as the distances increase, as she gets more experience, we're going to see this real filly really show up towards the end of the summer. I think more distance is going to work to her advantage. I just wonder if this spot is a little bit short for her and a little bit too tough from a class standpoint. A horse that perhaps we should also mention is Casual for Steve Asmussen, a daughter of Curlin out of Lady Tack, who won the Test and the Prioress. She's 2 for 2. She's run some fast races, and if she shows up in the Acorn, she's got some upset potential.
And Lady Tack's family, very active right now for Asmussen. Lady Tack is the granddam of Volatile, who ran the highest Beyer speed figure of the year to date at Churchill Downs a couple weeks ago, a rising star in the sprint division. Casual from that very, very fast family, maybe with a little bit of stamina from Curlin on top to back her up going the mile here.
No, I think that's a very intriguing combination of stamina over sprintability, and I think that will work nicely going a one-turn mile. And I think from the Beyer speed figures, I believe she's run twice. I believe she's run 290 Beyer speed figures. She is right there with the likes of Gamine. She's an interesting upset candidate. Asmussen can do no wrong recently. Of course, you mentioned Volatile. Pulled off the big upset with She's a Julie last week at the Belmont, in the Ogden Phipps.
And Asmussen with a couple of runners in the Belmont Stakes as well later in the day. Before we get to the Belmont, we'll see who comes out on top in the Acorn. As you mentioned, I think, very clearly this race could kind of set fillies on one of two paths into some of the prestigious summer and fall races. We'll be back with the replay of the Grade 1 Acorn and analysis next week, as well as continued updates on the road to the Kentucky Oaks right here for DRFTV.